This afternoon, or rather this morning, immediately after the press briefing, I will be meeting with the head of the Labor Department and some other people to discuss the jumpstart of the employment fund, the youth employment fund that government is putting together. We've spoken about it for so often, is a fund that will ensure that young people who are unemployed between the ages of 18 to 30, probably it will be shifted to include persons older than 30, depending on the demand. But persons who have been unemployed will be given the opportunity to be employed immediately, and while on the job, they're being trained at the job that they are in. The legal structure still has to be finalized. We've had a legal opinion on that now, and the funds to push the program will come primarily from two areas. One of them will be a levy of 1 cent extra, like a top-up on every liter of gasoline of 1 cent. So everybody purchasing gasoline will contribute across the board to this. And we need to formalize an agreement with GEBE whereby all citizens, all, everybody, every household is actually connected to our electricity grid, and businesses, of course, and there will be a 1 cent per kilowatt that will be levied per household or per business. Just this morning, I received my electricity bill last night. Well, when I got home, I took it out of the mailbox, and in reviewing it, in my case, for instance, with an electricity bill of 540 guilders, it will mean an extra levy of 12 guilders. So somebody who pays 500 guilders electricity, for electricity that includes the fuel surcharge, so your complete bill, it would mean you're consuming somewhere around 1,200 kilowatts per month, and then you would then contribute 12 cents to the fund. Of course, you might find some people who would want to raise objection, but when we look at the bigger picture, we have hundreds of our young people who drop out of school. We have hundreds of our young people who are unemployed. Some of them get employment for a short period, for 6 months, and then they're out of a job. But mostly, what keeps a lot of our young people out of a job is that when you apply, you're told you have no experience. You go try again, and you are told, well, you have no qualifications, no job experience, and you land in that vicious cycle. And that person, that young person, then loses interest and loses any hope in the system. By introducing this, we will be creating a platform whereby young people will have a job, and even if after you have spent 1 year, that is what the program will run for. If you spend 1 year on a job and you have been trained, when you leave that job, you will at least be able, when applying for a new job somewhere, show that you have had ample experience and you have been trained. Next week, we will be hitting the roads to be going in the different districts to have the recruitment drive, and we hope that the young people will respond, because it is not going to be just a recruitment drive where people will then be asked, what's your qualifications, and then be told, sorry, we don't have a job for you. Whether you dropped out of school when you were 14 or 15 with no kind of training, with no experience, with no qualifications, with no job know-how, you will be guaranteed to get a job once you are willing to go to work and conduct yourself just like any and every normal employee. Other benefits that they will derive is that they will have the they will be enrolled in SZV, they will be paying taxes, they will have their doctor card, and at the same time, as I said before, they will be trained. We will also begin the discussions with the business community because they are the partners with government in this. The good is that they would not have to pay to employ persons who they may not need at that time, or who they may say, I don't really need somebody who is 18, 19, or 30 years, that has no experience, that has no qualifications, that has no diploma. I don't have a job for him, because they would have to pay that one or two persons. The fund will pay the employer to employ these people, and the only deal, the only arrangement actually between them and the fund would be that they will secure that person with a job. So if we send somebody to a bank and you want to be trained, let's say, as a teller, then the bank will agree to train you as a teller, give you a job, let you work along with tellers just like every other teller, and maybe after 6 months, rotate you to somewhere else in the bank again that you can get experience. And after the year, hopefully the bank will say, great job, we will keep him or her. But if the job after year, the bank says after year, sorry, we really don't have anywhere, at the least that person has now 1 year of experience, 1 year of proper work ethics, 1 year, 1 year. And if necessary for the fund to continue with this person until they get permanent employment somewhere, we hope that can be done. And I think that once the fund run for a number of years, we will phase out that gap that we have created over the years with hundreds of young people who are shut out from the employment cycle. Yesterday, we also had a meeting, the Minister of VSR, my colleague, Minister Amy Lee, together with the Director of SZV, the Minister of Finance, myself, and the point guard on behalf of the government in reference to the completion of the government building, Mr. Erno Labega, for us to synchronize certain things and the way forward. This afternoon, I'm supposed to be in Parliament to answer to statements and or questions made in the second round of a meeting in reference to the new administration building. What has been clear from the very first week after we started the completion process of the building, that if we comply with the wishes of government and actually as of government, we would actually need more than the 15 million that was agreed upon between the government at the time with purchasing the building. It was based on information that was there before, but realistically, if we want to do it and do it right, and when you do an assessment, you realize that there are certain things, cabling that has been there now for some years, some of it need to be replaced in order for the building to function and operate properly. So we have separated some of the responsibilities. So SZV will stick with the 15 million approved budget. The only thing is that it will not include furniture and IT hardware. They will become now the responsibility of government. So yes, it will cost more than the projected 15 million to move in and occupy the entire building. It appears that the 15, or actually it was 16.2 million projection for the completion. We understood now that it actually just was for the first and the fourth floor. We are also still looking at moving into the building around the date that the Prime Minister said back then that he will be moving in for sure on July 1st, which, as I said at the time, was sort of a joke, but a serious one. So we are kind of sticking around that period for the Council of Ministers and the remainder of personnel in this building to move over there, and other departments and ministries will follow. One of the challenges that we face with the transition from this building to that building is that there are several offices that are severely infected by mold. Some of them are severely infected by mold, particularly downstairs in the finance department. But throughout the building, we have detected mold that has crept into the building for the past years. Now, if you take files and you just, it's like you're moving from one house to another and your clothes are infected with mold. If you just take them and move them into the new home, you will take the mold along with you. So we need to go through a process of cleaning up files in order to prevent taking mold from this building over there. And if we don't do it right, within the next year or two, the entire building will then be infected by mold. And we know that mold is definitely not good for people's health. An issue that was, on the blogs, I believe, over the past day or two, was the condition of the premises at the Leonard Connor School. After the carnival vacation, teachers and students came back and found a situation that was unacceptable. This, however, appears to be another glitch with the transition from one process to another, where I believe that in the former garbage collection contracts, cleaning of the school was included, and now that has been separated, and you have a separation between the garbage collection and the roadside cleaning, where the cleaning of the school will fall now under the responsibility of the one that cleans. The Minister of Education was alerted about it. She was to be here today, but some other issues came up last minute. So on her behalf, I want to let the public know that the teacher, or the minister has been made aware of the development, and action will be undertaken immediately to ensure that that goes away, and that once the new contracts are all in place, that we would see things running smoothly. I know the Minister of Environment and Vromi is here and may or may not address the issue at this point. But what was a few weeks ago the biggest crime committed on St. Martin, we can see now clearly had to do with simply the transition. We are not saying that it is acceptable or that's the way it has to go, but it was a transition from garbage collection contracts that expired. A new set of contractors took over. Some were part of the former contractors but assigned to different areas. But now one of the areas where we see there was a lot of commotion, today it is under control. And I want to commend the minister and the contractors who have been working diligently to bring this to where it is today. We are running out of time. The minister is here, so thank you, and I will await any questions.
You made a number of points. You gave us a lot of information, but one thing that is very important that you did not say a word about is the Zika virus. Just 2 days ago, Interval International was on St. Martin. They had a seminar, an exchange seminar, and they said clearly that they are monitoring the Zika virus, because just recently one of their clients asked that they be rerouted because that person is pregnant and is scared of being infected. Are you putting much emphasis on the Zika virus, and at least give us real statistics as to how many persons are infected with Zika on this side of the island?
Thanks, BB. The department, the CPS department, is normally the one who's issuing the statistics. I haven't seen the statistics recently, but the numbers on the Dutch side are still fairly low. It is clearly a priority of the ministry. We just are in the process of concluding a test case in the Fort Willem area where we purchased over 5,000 OV traps, and those were distributed for free, and they were monitored in the Fort Willem area. And what we found is that for people who used the OV traps correctly, who maintained them correctly, they were very effective. Unfortunately, what we found is that the community, for example, would have these OV traps or lethal OV traps set out, but then right next to it, they would still have buckets where they're collecting the rainwater from their gutters, and that there was a problem there in terms of them eliminating breeding grounds within their own environment. So it's become very clear that the war on mosquitoes, and thereby the war against Zika, is very much a war that cannot be won without the public engagement in that fight. We are working closely. As a matter of fact, I have a trip planned soon, trying to work together with both Curaçao and Aruba in terms of developing a communication plan, because I don't believe in wasting the people's money, and I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So, for example, in Curaçao, they've produced an animation video that explains about how not to get bit by mosquitoes. So the cost for us to adjust that video to use in St. Martin is obviously much less than developing that ourselves. They've also produced an information booklet that I believe is very detailed in multiple languages, and we're looking at producing 2 other videos, same type of animation type videos, that would explain about how to eliminate the breeding grounds in your neighborhood, and also about the life cycle of the mosquitoes, and explaining why it's so important to eliminate them in our breeding grounds, in our neighborhoods. So the war against them is very much active, the department's very much active, and what we're looking to do is to make the best impact together with partners. Even I'm reaching out to my former partners in the Caribbean. So, for example, to Spanish-speaking destinations, that they would, for example, fund the translation of those videos into Spanish, and that we could then use that translated version in St. Martin. So, very much on top of it.
Thank you, Minister Lee. I will now move to Minister Arundel. Welcome to the press briefing. Next month, the end of June, the former director, or sent home director, Regina La Vega, her salary should be ending. And based on what I know, there are meetings or discussions with Ms. La Vega for her to be a consultant for PJIE. Can you tell us if an agreement has been reached with the former director based on the fact that she has an enormous amount of knowledge on tourism as well as the airport? Tell us if there is an agreement reached, and at the same time, tell us what's the status of the supervisory board. I know a letter was sent to the board, and I know there's a procedure taking place. Give us an update on that.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Shaw. As far as I'm aware, there are no negotiations concerning a consultancy contract with Regina La Vega. However, I must state that the chairman of the supervisory board did sit with Ms. La Vega, together with the caretaker of the shareholding company, Mr. Peterson, and she forwarded a proposal, a consultancy proposal, which they were in discussion with her. That discussion was held in December. However, after December, I did not receive any information pertaining to the negotiation with her. In fact, yesterday I called Mr. Peterson. He came to my office, and I inquired concerning her situation. As you stated, her contract is ending the end of June, and I was told that they were keeping a shareholders meeting where they will discuss her situation specifically. So I haven't, I don't know if the meeting was held, but I will be asking and see what was discussed with Ms. LaBega. Actually, I also have spoken with Ms. LaBega and asked her what her intentions are. In fact, she called me. And seeing that she has a vast experience in the tourism, as you stated, we will be in discussion with her to see how she can assist in a consultancy area with the setting up of the SEA. What we are looking at is this tourism development plan, where she has a vast amount of experience, and together with her and the foundation, the supervisory board that we have at the SEA, we will be developing this tourism development plan, whereby we will have clear the vision and the objectives, and also we will implement procedures in order to safeguard our tourism industry, that we will not be faced with a situation whereby each time, because there are different ministers with different views, that this platform will ensure that the tourism products will be intact and there will be continuity. Another question was,
Supervisory board.
the supervisory board, pertaining to that. What is happening with supervisory board? Is that your question? Yeah. Actually, at the present moment, nothing is happening. What we know is that some of the terms of the members of the supervisory board are expiring, and that situation, we are monitoring that. And you know the situation between the supervisory board and the present, actually, the situation that between us and them, we will be looking into appointing our people in order to ensure that the activities at the airports are safeguarded. We will look at not appointing our people in the sense that we will look at those persons that will ensure that the operation of the company and the interests are upheld and secured.
Thank you, Minister.
But in fact, like you said, the appointment will have to go through the corporate governance. Is a procedure that has to be followed. And once you get, once they are vetted and they're approved, then they will be approved in a shareholders meeting, the appointment of this person that goes on the supervisory board. And what I have been informed also that the PJIA operating company, that they have started discussions with various companies in order to appoint a managing director at the airport.
Thank you, Minister Arundel. I turn now my third question to Prime Minister William Marlin. I actually have two for you, but I know that they're going to stop me, so I'll go for one. Minister Marlin, based on my understanding that after the interviews that took place for the CEO position at Talem, I understood that there are two persons that came up with very high scores. Can you tell me, yeah, I know, wow. Can you tell me if a selection was made, if any of the two candidates or any candidate was selected, and when would the appointment take place?
We recently, I think it was Friday, but late last week, I got a letter from the board of Talem in which they reported on the process to arrive at the appointment of a CEO for the company. 4 candidates apparently were interviewed. 2 of them have been proposed to the shareholder, for the shareholder to take a decision as to whether the shareholder wants to appoint one of them or not. The next process is that the shareholder will take the decision this week. the Corporate Governance Council will then be informed that the shareholder intends to appoint candidate X, include their CV, because that was one of the things we asked for them to forward, because they just forwarded the names without the CVs. Yesterday, I got the CVs, so today the advice to the council will be made. Simultaneous to that, the person that is selected will be submitted to the VDSM, the National Security Agency that does the screening, and the screening would then need to take place for the candidate, because that would be one of the requirements as well for the candidate to be appointed. We've had for some time situations where persons who were in office, even in government service, prior to the law going into effect, up till now, some of them have not yet been screened. And that is one of the things that hamper the operations in companies, that if there is a need to appoint someone, that by the time you go through the Corporate Governance Council and have to go through the screening at the VDSM, you can be looking sometimes anywhere between 5 and 6 weeks before that screening is completed. So that's the process that now needs to take place.
Thank you.
Yes, Prime Minister, on the unemployment, the youth employment plan, you said
You're too old for that.
the 1 cent levy. When do you expect to get that going?
The 1 cent, the legislation has been drafted. It is now a matter of getting it through Parliament to be approved. But also in particularly where it pertains to GBE, it's an agreement we need to realize as well with GEBE, where we will have an agreement with GBE, because GBE would sort of be like a collection agency for government. So it is not something that we are imposing on GBE. The circumstances at GEBE now are not the most favorable, so to speak. We do not have the management team that normally consists of 3 persons. We have none in place. What we do have at the helm of GBE is an interim manager, 1 person. And then as far as the board is concerned, we are in the process of appointing new board members. That meeting has been scheduled for the 26th of June. May, 26th of May. So all of these are things that we need to take into consideration as far as completing the process. In the meanwhile, though, what will happen is that the groundwork will begin in going into the districts, having the young people registered, fine-tuning the parameters, getting the fund up and running and notarized, and having discussions with the business community, because without them, the training cannot take place as well.
Thank you.